one of the worst firings and one of the worst things I've seen yet was almost 7 months ago, the Cyber Command commander. He got fired for no reason. Now, the only person to give a reason was Laura Loomer, and she's a crackpot. And I guess she went in there and said that he was a traitor, and then he gets fired the next day. I'm vocal for a reason. I want him to fix it.
All good work is done in defiance of management.
I'm going to tell you the truth whether you like it or not.
Go ahead, give me the finger.
The Dan Parsons Show.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the Dan Parsons Show. I am your host, Dan Parsons, along with a voice and face you hear often, Dr. Trey Thompson. Dr. Trey, thanks for stopping by.
Hey, Dan, glad to be here. Looking forward to a big weekend here in Huskerland.
Yeah. Well, this is the kickoff of Season 2, Episode 101. Coming up on the new season, today's show, Congressman Don Bacon returns to give us the latest on the government shutdown, an update on the war in Ukraine, and the president's beef with Nebraska beef, and a whole lot more. Okay, Trey, thanks for hanging out with me. Here's my interview with Congressman Don Bacon. Enjoy. Well, it is my pleasure to welcome back to the show Congressman Don Bacon. Congressman, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me on again, and it's always an honor and a pleasure. And I know we got a big weekend coming up for Cornhusker football.
Yeah,
I got to show the colors for our hockey team down here in Omaha too.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, when has the hockey team have the season started? Yeah.
We're always typically the top 20, which is impressive. You know, UNO top 20 hockey team, and we play the nation's best hockey team. So like a lot of great sports here in Nebraska.
Absolutely. No shortage. Well, Congressman, let's start with obviously the shutdown. It's now become the second longest shutdown in U.S. history. The Senate was unable for the 12th time to advance a stopgap spending bill that would have reopened the government. So I guess my question, Congressman, what's the secret formula to get both parties at the table to come up with a solution to get the federal government back?
I try to call balls and strikes. I'm not a unilateral support your party guy or a reflexive oppose Trump on every occasion. I think, I try to call it the way I see it. I think in this case, the Democrats are on the wrong page. I mean, 13 times before this shutdown, Democrats have voted for a clean CR, a totally clean CR with this budget. And this is still Joe Biden's budget. And we've added nothing, no political strings attached to the CR. So we were trying to extend it 7 weeks so we could finish the appropriations bills, of which the House has passed all the appropriations bills out of committee, and they've passed about half out of the House. The Senate has some out of the Senate, but all of them are out of committee as well. So in other words, we're very close to getting a new budget agreed, and it's bipartisan. It has to be because you got to get 20 or 60 votes in the Senate. So I really think the Democrats should have focused on the appropriations bills, getting the ACA COVID-era tax credits negotiated and that. But they decided to do it on the CR itself. I got to give you a quote. I'll paraphrase a quote.
Yeah.
President Obama says, never negotiate anything different than a clean CR.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing.
Yep.
So the Democrats are on the wrong side of that this time. And we have put other bills up. We put the defense bill that passed out of committee, totally bipartisan. They said no. Let's pay the salaries of those people working. They've said no. So my take on this, Dan, it's not just about COVID era tax credits, which most Republicans would agree to a compromise. It's really they hate Trump so bad that they got to show that they're fighting back to their base. And that's what I'm being told that in various ways, but that's how I would just interpret it. And they got to show they're fighting back. But when you ask them, what is your way out of it? There's no good answer from them. What's your negotiating? What's your end state goal? Some will say, well, we want guardrails, but tell me what that means. And so this could be a long-term fight because there's just such deep anger towards Trump that a lot of them feel compelled to to do this. I'll give you some examples how this manifests itself. So like some Democrats said yesterday in media, they're afraid if they vote to reopen government, they'll stop getting donations in their campaign stuff because the base will be angry at them. I also heard Sullivan said that by continuing the shutdown, they think that will help the Democrats in Virginia and New Jersey in the elections coming up.
Huh. Yeah.
It's a shame.
Yeah.
I think it's a shame we got there. And I get it. I don't support Trump on tariffs, Ukraine, a variety of issues, but we don't want a 3-year shutdown either. So we got to find it. We got to find our way out of this.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, speaking of the president's controversial issues, let's move on to talk about the war on drug runners. And the U.S. military hit another vessel that the Trump administration claimed was carrying drugs from South America, killing 2 people. It was the first American strike on a vessel in the Pacific Ocean, expanding the campaign beyond the Caribbean. This was the 8th known strike that U.S. Special Operation Forces have conducted since September, when the military, on President Trump's orders, began killing people aboard boats to believe smuggling drugs as if they were enemy combatants in a war rather than criminal suspects. So, the administration has previously acknowledged 7 strikes, which it said had killed 32 people. Trump even said this, and we'll show the clip here.
If you are declaring war against these cartels and Congress is likely to approve of that process, why not just ask for a declaration of war?
Well, I don't think we're going to necessarily ask for a declaration of war. I think we're just going to kill people that are bringing drugs into our country. Okay? We're going to kill them. They're going to be like dead. Okay?
So help our audience, Congressman, understand this problem. I mean, do we really think that these small boats are carrying fentanyl from the Caribbean and now the Pacific to Florida? I'm having a difficult time wrapping my head around this operation. And so anyway, any clarity on that, Congressman?
I've had some involvement in my military life tracking the drug shipments in South America and the Caribbean, Central America. Often these boats are used to transship narcotics, normally cocaine, into southern Mexico or Guatemala, Honduras area, and then they go through the land route into America. So a lot of times these boats are used to get it part way, and then they go from there. I would say on this issue, but also the crime in our big cities, I think the president has identified a very important issue that's been largely ignored, but the application or the answer is off. And I could talk about the crime in our big cities for one, and using the guard, which I find is only a temporary answer, doesn't get to the problem. But we have a problem in our big cities that we shouldn't ignore. Here, I think most Americans know that we got a serious problem too. We got 100,000 Americans dying a year. I've lost 3 younger brothers. I'm the oldest of 9. And I've had one brother die of an accidental drug overdose many years ago. I had another brother die of an intentional drug overdose. And I had another brother die of drug abuse and alcohol abuse.
It's really close to home. So
it's close to home. And I would even say, like, I have a lady that works for me. She owns a great restaurant here in Omaha. One of her bartenders died. Thought he was taking a very low, I think thought he was going to smoke marijuana, but had fentanyl in it, and it killed him. And so I think that's all over our country. And so we know we got a problem. 100,000 a year. That's, Vietnam, we lost 58,000 people in 10 years. The question is, how do you fight this? And I'm used to doing it the counter or the criminal way with using the Coast Guard, DEA, and things like this. I'm not opposed to using the military, but you got to come to Congress. And I think in this case, if you're going to continue bombing, we have the War Powers Resolution that gives the president the authority to do some combat operations up front. But if you're going to continue them, then you have to come to Congress and get approval. And so I think the president is forced to come to Congress if he's going to continue doing these operations. And if he does that, and he should do it, there's 2 things he's got to do. One, he's got to make the legal case. Now, I think if Congress authorizes it, he does give him the legal authority. But right now he doesn't have that. But he needs to come and talk about the legal authority, using the military versus DEA, Coast Guard, and so forth. But secondly, we want to have the intelligence to know we indeed know what we're striking, because we don't want to have the situation like we had under Joe Biden, where they attacked that family when they were pulling out of Kabul in Afghanistan, and they said it was a terrorist vehicle, but it killed the whole family, right? And we want assurance that this isn't going on like that again, that we are indeed with 100% surety going after drug runners. And so the Congress deserves to know, have the intelligence, have the legal basis. The White House needs to make their case so that we can vote this up or down.
Well, who's going to hold the administration? Who in Congress is going to hold them responsible? Because this is just another in a long line of issues that Congress seems to be, punting their authority to the.
Well,
to
I'm
the White
inclined
House.
to get out a war powers resolution. I'm just looking for the right bill right now, and I have really no doubt that the Democrats are probably pushing this. By the way, if a Democrat was doing it, the Republicans would be pushing it. Unfortunately, we're so partisan today that no matter what your party of your president does, the same party defends it. We would have always opposed tariffs, but now we're for tariffs, which I'm not. But I'm just saying we got this weird partisan culture right now that it's shirts and skins. You always defend your team.
Yep.
You always attack the other guy, even if they're right or wrong, no matter what. And I don't like that. But I do think we should be pushing for a war powers resolution in Congress. And granted, the majority there'll be many that will be defensive of that, because I think ultimately many of us would be supportive if we get the legal basis and the intelligence because of the 100,000. But I think we should do due diligence, because at some point we're going to have a Democrat president.
That's right.
And
at some
there
point,
shouldn't be two standards. We should have one standard here of how we go about this. And I guess that's my concern with some of our people in our party. They forget someday we're going to be in the minority. Someday we're going to have a Democrat president again. And the same rules that we're using now will be used against us. And I don't think that's wise.
Yeah. You mentioned tariffs, and you have been a vocal opponent of the president using his tariffs to really wreak some havoc. So Nebraska ag leaders in unison denounced Trump's plan to buy beef from Argentina in order to bring prices down. President Trump said last week that U.S. cattle ranchers, he said they don't understand how they have benefited from his tariffs, adding that they have to get their prices down. And we can show that clip. But the president of the Nebraska Farm Bureau denounced that effort. And I think, so my question, I guess, Congressman, in a rare moment, the entire Nebraska Republican delegation has come out in opposition to President Trump's plan to import beef in order to lower prices for consumers. And you obviously have been one of those. Give us your thoughts on how, just overall the tariffs, but specifically this issue with trying to get beef prices down by importing from somewhere else. I mean, here we are in the heart of cattle country, and that doesn't go over well here in Nebraska.
Yeah, the president's policy floated like a lead balloon, right? Or as I've also said, Nebraska has a real beef with the president wanting to import more Argentina beef, right? So,
there's a bumper sticker.
We can have a little fun with that. But we got a real stake in this whole issue. But I guess two things on the tariff issue. One, I disagree with it from a constitutional basis. Article 1 in the Constitution gives tariffs and taxes totally to Congress and not to the president. Now, the Congress has given emergency authorities to the president, but he's abusing that by doing overall tariff policy against 80 different countries. And it's his policy of having a strong tariff. That should be a congressional decision, not a presidential decision. And the Supreme Court is looking at it right now, and the president's scared that it's going to go the other way. The appeals court, I believe, ruled against it 9-4. Right, and on the very grounds I'm saying. Secondly, I don't think tariffs work. The Republicans last supported tariffs in a huge way since 1930, and it didn't work in the 1930s. It led to the Greatest Depression. ever in our history. Now, Richard Nixon flirted with tariffs a little bit in the late 60s, early 70s, and it backfired. But tariffs don't work. The president's upset right now because Ontario's playing this tape of Ronald Reagan.
I tell you what,
free trade.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Congressman, but I saw that watching the baseball game the other night, and I know we both agree that Ronald Reagan is one of my heroes. I know yours as well, and to hear his voice strongly denounce the policies of tariffs, and then President Trump just yesterday suggested that it was fake. So anyway, keep going. I'm sorry to interrupt.
I posted the whole video of that speech from Ronald Reagan today on my X account, the whole speech. And they're saying it's fake because in the speech, Reagan talks about how bad protectionism is and tariffs. But in the speech, he says he needed to put a tariff on Japanese semiconductors because the Japanese weren't honoring our trade agreement on semiconductors. But he says, in principle, I'm against it. And so they're trying to point out, the Trump team, that they didn't talk at all about the semiconductor part of this speech. But if you listen to the speech in general, he's very anti-protectionist, very free trade. He also gives a speech at State of the Union, President Trump, Reagan, very much in support of free trade. And obviously President Trump don't like it, but I'm a free trade guy. You get the best quality products at the best price, the most efficient manner, using free trade. It's good for our consumers. It keeps our industries competitive. It keeps our country competitive. And that's the Ronald Reagan message. So I oppose what President Trump's doing constitutionally, but just pragmatically, it doesn't work in my view. And our farmers and ag are very mad right now. Protectionism hurts the Midwest agriculture. We haven't sold any soybeans. We're not selling any corn. And our input prices are very high. It may have helped limit some of the beef competition with Nebraska or the United States beef growers or ranchers, but the ranchers were already rebounded way before President Trump came in. Reason we really have high prices today, we had a drought, which shrunk the herd, and then we have this hookworm or whatever that worm is down in Mexico that's preventing some of our feeder lots in Texas getting Mexican cattle. Put the two together, we have a lack of cattle right now, but the prices are high, so the ranchers are working overtime to expand their herds and protect their heifers. They're trying to fix it, so the free market was going to work. And there was a lot of heat on this decision by the White House in Nebraska past 4 days.
I assume the president heard you guys loud and clear. Hopefully,
he said he was mad at our ranchers, as if they didn't understand their own industry, which I don't think that helped.
Nope, not at all. Congressman, obviously one of the things that I've appreciated, and I know many of your constituents have, is your support for democracy across the world. So let's talk about Ukraine. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent announced last week that there were going to be new sanctions, finally, against Russia's two biggest oil companies. And he blasted Moscow's refusal to end the senseless war. I guess my question, Congressman, is it seems like there are very mixed messages coming from the White House on supporting Ukraine and democracy in Europe. And, to the point where there was even reporting that President Trump had a conversation with Putin here recently and actually asked him if he should ship Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine. Because, again, Trump was suggesting that he was open to doing that, to shipping some more weapons. And then he turns around and is asking the wrong person if that's a good idea or not. Anyway, give our audience, and I know you follow this so closely, and again, I appreciate your support for democracy in Europe. Give us a sense of where we're at with the war in Ukraine.
Well, the first 6 months, President Trump, I thought, was very weak on Ukraine. Actually, I would say much worse than Joe Biden. And I was not a fan of Joe Biden on Ukraine. It was always too little, too late, too many rules of engagement, too tentative, too worried about escalation, and really communicated weakness. Then President Trump comes in the first 6-7 months, and didn't want to help out Ukraine at all, and basically treated Ukraine and Russia as the equals in this war, not someone being a victim. And there's an invader that's bombing cities, that's kidnapping their children, murdering POWs, raping the women in the towns that they've taken. That's Russia. And Ukraine's got a democratically elected president embracing the freedoms that we like, wanting to be part of the EU, part of NATO. Russia is the antagonist of the free world. And for some reason, our president didn't see this. Now, the last 2 or 3 months, the president has changed a little bit. He's taken, like I would consider, 2 steps forward. They will take 2 steps back. And really, it's been quite muddled. But now that he's putting some tariffs on the 2 oil companies in Russia, I would say that's 2 steps forward. But to me, it's just a drop in the bucket. It's showing just doing a little to make a statement, but it really does not have the big impact. What we want to do is we've got to convince Putin he cannot win, that the cost is too high. And that means 2 things. One, you have to provide quality weapons to Ukraine so they can hit military and economic targets deep into Russia. And they're doing it right now, not with our weapons, but with other people's weapons, their own weapons. But they've shut off about 1/3 of Russia's oil production. That is huge. That goes right after the weakness of Putin. If you cut off his war economy, he's in trouble. So we need to give them high-end weapons, 1. 2, we need to be doing very strong secondary sanctions going against countries that are doing business with Russia. If you do those 2 things together, you can get Putin to a spot where he says, okay, I can't win. He may get desperate, but I don't think he's going to start a world war over it. I'm very, very unlikely. But you can't let him intimidate us in not doing this, because he's trying to do that right now. But the president has done very little, and very ambiguous by who's at fault. It seems to me he has a moral blind spot when it comes to Putin. Most of us see him who he is. He's a murderer. He's killed all of his rivals. He's a terrible guy.
I think most of the world recognizes that. Yeah.
I think the real issue is the president has some kind of blind spot there. But I think he would have come around more, but he's got Vice President Vance, who's very weak on Ukraine.
Yep.
He's worse than Trump.
Yep.
Even the Secretary of Defense claimed that Hegseth has a loathing for Europe, right? That's not coming from me. That's coming from Hegseth. And also, Hegseth is extraordinarily weak. He's been cleared to send weapons, and him and his team keeps blocking these weapons being sent to Ukraine. And there's really a guy that works behind him, the Undersecretary of Defense for Policy. His last name is Colby. He has zero interest in helping Ukraine. Zero. He doesn't like NATO. He used to be stronger on China, but now he's gone weak on China. He has no interest in cyber war and cyber operations that we need. Hence, we are rudderless right now at Cyber Command. And so I think that there's some other issues around Trump. Some of the people he has selected are the opposite of Ronald Reagan Republicans.
Yeah. Well, not to belabor this, Congressman, but let's talk about Secretary Hegseth for a moment. I mean, as a former military leader, and your pedigree speaks for itself, Hegseth has done some things that just has people who are lifelong military people, such as yourself, scratching their head. He's gotten rid of some really important people over there. And so anyway, I a former weekend talk show host is now making all these policy decisions for us. Anyway, your thoughts on his leadership?
There's a great article in Washington Times talking about how the generals and admirals are feeling right now, and they're pretty critical. I listened to the speech he gave a week or 2 ago,
Yep.
And I think most of us agree our flag officers need to be in shape, physically fit. Most of them really are. I mean, when I retired, I was running 7-minute miles for 5 miles. I was rated in the top 1% of my age. Granted, that was 11 years ago. I'm starting to feel my age now. But at the time, I was in good shape. And we want to have a warrior mindset in our military. And so, but he defines it largely through physical fitness. And you also need to have integrity, character, loyalty, resilience, a promise to defend our Constitution. I mean, it's more than just physical fitness. And he seems very one-dimensional, in my view. I think also seemed very juvenile in how he was treating our flag officers, like as if they're 20-year-olds. That's what it came across to many of us. That's the feedback I got. I have a lot of generals that I work for.
I bet you do.
4-star generals who
Yeah.
they like Trump, but they're not impressed with the Secretary of Defense. That's what I was hearing from a lot of my old bosses that contacted me after that. I think there's some core issues that are deeper than just this. There's a lot of style over substance here on the physical fitness and a few things. But the fact is we have fired so many good 4-stars and 3-stars, and for no reason. Sometimes they gave a reason, but not often. Some there's no reason at all. One of the worst firings and one of the worst things I've seen yet was almost 7 months ago, the Cyber Command commander, a 4-star general. And truth be known, I worked with him when he was a colonel.
I remember reading about that. Yeah.
Yeah, a General Tim Hawk. He got fired for no reason. Now, the only person to give a reason was Laura Loomer, and she's a crackpot. And I guess she went in there and said that he was a traitor, and then he gets fired the next day. But the administration offered no defense of it or no justification. He was truly the most qualified guy in the entire military to command Cyber Command. He'd been doing it his whole life. He was groomed for about a decade to be the 4-star. And now it's 7 months later, we don't have a commander. It's still vacant. And the number 2 person, and he was also the number 1 guy at NSA, they fired the number 2 person at NSA. That is still vacant. These are 2 critical positions, and they're vacant. Meanwhile, we're cutting CISA, which is the Homeland Security agency that defends the private sector and our infrastructure from cyber attacks. So they've been gutted by about a third, and their funding by about a third. This is the front line for defensive cyber attacks, and we are attacked every day by Russia and China. So it's very inexplicable. I think it's very indefensible what has been going on in the cyber realm under this administration. And I'm vocal for a reason. I want them to fix it. I don't mind him being mad at me. I want him to feel pressure to fix this. You can't leave a 4-star joint commander, that position, vacant for 7 months. I mean, it's just crazy.
Yeah. Thank you. Let's talk about Epstein. Representative Robert Garcia, the ranking member on the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform, demanded that Attorney General Pam Bondi in the Department of Justice immediately turn over all the Epstein-related files and end her refusal to comply with the committee's now months-old congressional subpoena. This comes after Virginia Giuffre, survivor of the Epstein sex trafficking operation, released her new memoir, detailing damning allegations regarding Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and the vast scale of Epstein's criminal network. And she alleges that the existence of critical new evidence, which may be in the possession of DOJ. And yet here's what Representative Garcia said. Virginia Giuffre's allegations are heartbreaking and horrific, including testimony that prominent world and U.S. leaders perpetuated sexual assault and sex trafficking on girls and young women. Ms. Giuffre clearly contradicts the agency's claim that the Epstein files did not justify further investigation, Representative Garcia said in a statement. And just to bring our audience up to speed, Virginia Giuffre's memoir was written after her death, was released after her death. And she died by suicide back in April. And she was 41 and she was 17 when those rapes took place. Mm-hmm. Do you think, here's my question. Thanks for letting me give that detail. Do you think there will be a vote in Congress to release the Epstein files?
Yeah, well, already we're already directed the Oversight Committee to subpoena everything out of the White House and the DOJ. So on paper, all this should be coming to us anyway. regardless of this vote. But with the election of the new congresswoman from Arizona, it's just a matter of time. She'll be the 218th name on that discharge petition. And so it's going to happen. Now, my comeback to a lot of folks is like Garcia, the congressman. When did he speak up when Joe Biden had this stuff for 4 years? And it's just sort of my little heartburn that there are a lot of people demanding the stuff now that were silent for when Joe Biden had it. And I would just also submit just a sense of realism here. If there was anything bad about Trump or any of the Republicans, it would have been leaked under Joe Biden. And if there would have been anything bad about the Democrats, I think it would be leaked already by President Trump's team. But that said, we should have it all out in the open. I was reading under this Gouffre lady's memoirs, there was a prime minister of one of our allies.
Yeah.
That was a perpetrator.
Yeah.
We should know who that is. All that should be out there. I also would submit to you that when we do this vote in the House, it's still got to pass the Senate. The president's still got to sign it. I don't know if he'll sign it. Maybe he'll veto it. Then we got to come back to, get 66% of the votes to override a veto. I thought the easiest way was to let our House subpoena the stuff, which they have. But I think we're going to have this vote anyway, because we're going to have this discharge petition is going to have 218, and we're going to be voting on it soon after we get back. Whenever the House reopens, we'll be voting on it.
Yeah. Okay, finally, I'll let you get out of here. Enjoy your weekend. The race to elect your successor, KMTV3 story. There's a meme war going on over the government shutdown, and a meme was made its way to the 2nd District congressional race with Republican candidate Brinker Harding facing criticism for posting a campaign video reacting to one of the Sombrero memes on his social media profiles. Harding's campaign Instagram feed shows reactions to this content, including a post responding to Vice President J.D. Vance's promise to stop Sombrero memes if Democrats help reopen the government.
Tell Hakeem Jeffries right now, I make this solemn promise to you that if you help us reopen the government, the Sombrero memes will stop. And I've talked to the President of the United States about that.
Look, guys, there's no way to sugarcoat it. Nobody likes Democrats anymore.
Look, it's pretty simple. Listen to the president, listen to the vice president, get back to work, and the sombreros go away.
It's all kind of silly, but I found this interesting. Mr. Harding said that we should get back to work. This was in his post. Get back to work, and the sombreros go away. Denise Powell, one of the Democratic candidates running for your seat, called out Mr. Harding for what she described as political theater. It's not a time for racist and juvenile memes, Powell said. So I don't expect you to get involved in this race to replace you. Maybe you will. But don't you think that we are better than that, than to make fun of these memes? And I don't know. I don't think getting elected by making fun of people is conducive to positive political discourse in this country. Anyway.
No, for example, I get a lot of memes do on me, but I save them all and put them back out because I think they're funny. So I had a guy, somebody put me in a full mariachi costume AI and put it out. Here's Don Bacon. And I reposted it because I think it's funny. I mean, that stuff cracks me. I got so many memes done on me, clown faces. I got tons of, I got about 50 of them that I'm going to save for a presentation someday just for fun. Now, I don't really like the memes either when, the White House puts a sombrero on Hakeem Jeffries, or he put one on some other people. I looked at the Brinker Harding one. He didn't put a hat on anybody. He just said, let's open government and get rid of the Supreme memes. And he threw the sombrero. That's not putting a sombrero on somebody. So I thought it was more light-hearted humor versus putting the sombrero on somebody AI and making them look like they're wearing the sombrero. So I didn't take it as offensive as Denise Powell, but I would, in this day of age, even if you're doing something lighthearted, you're going to people are going to try to go after you.
That's just it. I think it's more of a way that it's just good sense to maybe avoid some of that, especially in this day and age. Anyway, that's going to be an interesting race.
He didn't put a picture of somebody wearing a sombrero or anything like that. He simply said, let's reopen the government and get rid of sombrero memes. And he threw the hat. I think that's what he did. That's how I remember
it is.
Well,
no, it's
okay.
exactly what he did. We can show it. It'll be an interesting race. It's got to be an awkward moment for you to see this race heat up to whoever might replace
somebody
him. So
today on KFAB goes, and when you announce you're not going to run, you lose relevance. But you can use that example. You could use that to never quit running. At some point, you got to turn the page. And I did it for 10 years. And I hope to remain relevant in areas, but there's always reasons to keep running. And I just thought for family, for health, and working 14 hours a day, it was time to take on a new challenge. And somebody's got to have more fire in their belly. I've worked 14-hour days during the week for 10 years and worked most weekends, and I'm just ready to do a new challenge out there. And I hope God has something good for me to do. And I don't want to retire, but I needed something new. And I think it's going to be a tough race for either party. You got two Republicans. Normally in an off year with a Republican in the White House, we have an uphill climb. That said, both of our candidates are pretty smart. They're not burning the independents. They're trying to win the middle. Both of our guys, and I would say on the Democrat side, all but one, I'd say one of them is trying to sound more reasonable and pragmatic. But for the most part, most of them are running under the Bernie Sanders mantra. And that's not good for District 2. Even though Trump didn't win, you can win this district as a pragmatic Republican, but Bernie Sanders doesn't do well. So I feel like there's some different things going on here that's going to make it almost, I would call it a toss-up race. It's going to be a really tough fight for both sides.
It'll be interesting to watch. In the meantime, you've got a lot of work left to do, Congressman.
Yes,
thank you for spending some time here. We're recording this on Friday. This will go live on Monday. So I appreciate your leadership. Appreciate you coming on the show, Congressman.
You have a great weekend.
Thanks, Don. Hey, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on today's show. Leave me a comment below on the YouTube channel, and I promise I'll reply. Oh, and while you're there, please hit the subscribe button. It helps more than you realize. Hey, thanks to Panology Tech Solutions for their technical help. Kim Remington, Parsons PR's Director of Operations. Chase Porter, who produced this episode, and Ike Samanis for his graphic design and also his production work. And most importantly, thanks to each of you for listening. And hey, if you like this video on YouTube, check out these episodes too. Hey, that's today's show. Thanks for tuning in. Now go do good things. I'm Dan Parsons.